What if we take Wembanyama, one of the most hyped rookies ever, and make him team up with LeBron James, by far the most highly anticipated rookie of all time? Meaning now in 2003, Victor is becoming a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers, which leads us to wonder, how many rings could this duo win together? Because while their roster isn't great right now, they'll be joining some very talented teams over the years as they live out LeBron's career together, all the way to his time with the Los Angeles Lakers. And while I'm sure they'll win plenty of championships, will they have enough to earn the most rings in NBA history? Because Bill Russell not only won one ring, but a whopping 11 championships in his career. So now the magic number is 12 for this duo to be able to go down as the most winning players in the history of the NBA. And in 2003, with their rookie campaigns beginning, they were already off to an incredible start. Wemby was averaging 21.1 points per game, which would lead the entire team. And a lot of that was due to LeBron averaging 6.4 assists per night as he was setting Victor up for easy baskets and helping his scoring averages rise. Don't get it twisted though, LeBron was still a scoring machine himself with an impressive 18.9 points per night, and as impressive as these two young stars were, with them being forced to share the rock, it meant neither of them would be recognized as the top rookie. The Rookie of the Year trophy would end up out west in the hands of a deserving Carmelo Anthony, and on the topic of trophies, that brings us to our next challenge. Because while these two would be working together to try and surpass Bill Russell, they'd also be competing with one another to determine who is the greatest of all time. And the personal trophies they collect along the way will be a major deciding factor on who earns that title. So get your predictions in the comments now on who you think will do better. And you don't have to rush, because even with the duo taking the league by storm, they were still young and inexperienced. There would be no trophies this year, and come the playoffs, they'd run into the Nets in round one and were swiftly reminded that any success would have to be earned and not given. Their rookie years would be concluded here in a loss, but with that wrapped up, our story can now really begin in year two. With one season behind them already, this duo was now taking the NBA completely by storm, and they were doing a great job of sharing the offensive workload. Wembanyama upped his scoring to 26.8 points per night, but wouldn't be the team's top scorer this season. This time around, LeBron was just barely passing his scoring averages up to lead the team, and on top of that, he did a lot of other things great as well. He continued to be the team's main playmaker and set up those around him for looks, and he was even a major factor on the glass with 7.5 boards a night. The hype surrounding this duo was growing rapidly, but Wemby may be the one standing out. On top of being a great scorer, his defense was speaking volumes to how great he was. With a league-leading 2.7 blocks a game, he was easily one of the NBA's best two-way players. I figured he would be a lock to win Defensive Player of the Year, but I was wrong. Kevin Garnett was actually taking home the honors, and that wasn't it. It would seem the one downside of both Victor and LeBron sharing the team's workload meant that winning MVP would be a challenge, because KG, being the sole star on his team, meant he got way more touches, and in turn would be stealing this year's MVP from either of our stars. But while they got no personal rewards this year, come playoffs, they had the second seed and had their eyes on ring number one. With them up against a rookie Dwight Howard-led Magic, this would be a much easier first round than the year prior. It was a bit of a warm-up of what was to come, as Wemby and LeBron were easily winning this round, but things were about to get much more difficult. The NBA's top center, Shaquille O'Neal, was waiting in round two, and he was teamed up with Wade, one of the NBA's top young stars. Winning here would be twice as difficult, but they were ready. Victor was taking this series personally to establish himself as the top center, and he was relentlessly attacking Shaq through this entire series like a man on a mission. But you'd be crazy to think Shaq was going to let up against this young guy coming for his spot. At this point, Shaq was still an MVP candidate and very much in his prime. He was eating Wemby alive on the other end, abusing his strength and size. And that wasn't the last of Cleveland's problems either. They had nobody to slow down Wade, who was ravaging the Cavaliers' defense no matter what they tried to do to stop him. LeBron was trying to make up the difference of Shaq and Wemby scoring, but that wasn't gonna get it done. Miami's roster was just much deeper than Cleveland's, and outside the Cavs' two stars, they had little help. They'd find themselves down 3-1, and with them giving up a big lead in Game 5, this one was just about over. The Cavaliers are down huge here in Game 5. This series is pretty much over, and our duo is playing through the 2024 season, and while there's 19 years left until there, they don't have much room for any more mistakes because they're trying to win 12 rings in the next 19 years. They need to start making some progress very fast. Unfortunately, though, the 2006 NBA season wasn't looking very promising at first. While Wembanyama was playing well on both ends of the floor, he had plateaued a bit and didn't expand much from year two. His stats stayed relatively the same as they did in 05, and the rest of the Cleveland's roster didn't improve either, but the Cavs did have some saving grace. LeBron James was absolutely taking a massive leap here in the third year, and his stats would make major strides, unlike Victor's. He was elevating his game and propelling his team all the way to the top of the East as they finished with an incredible 70-12 record. But team success wasn't the only thing that he would experience this year, because it couldn't go unnoticed just how dominant he was becoming. LeBron James is crowned as our first MVP in the simulation, and while 35 points is insane, what really stands out to me is the whopping 81% from the free throw line in just year 3 for LeBron. You gotta love the accuracy of NBA 2K simulations. We still have several years to go before we determine who the top guy is in this duo, but for now, it's appearing to be LeBron early, as he earns the first MVP between the two. And with that, LeBron is making the first strike in this competition. But with the playoffs underway, Wemby still has a chance to tie it up, because with 70 wins this year, you'd obviously expect his team to make it to the finals, where Victor could try to earn the finals MVP. And with the first 2 rounds being completely controlled by Cleveland, they were well on their way to doing just that. But first, they had one last hurdle before they get to the big stage in the finals. Once more, they were competing with Shaq and this season's most improved player, Dwayne Wade. Eventually, the NBA will be completely turned upside down with a super team in Miami, as LeBron and Victor decide to join forces with fellow draftee D-Wade on the Heat. But as of now, they'd be rivals eager to defeat each other for a finals appearance. And Wade would do anything but make it easy for his future teammates, because he was having one of the most impressive conference finals ever. He and LeBron were clashing head-to-head as top 2 MVP candidates, and their production would nearly cancel each other out, which means the outcome of this series would heavily rely on what Wembanyama can do. Last season, Shaq was outperforming Wembanyama in their match with his size, but this year it wasn't looking to be a factor. Shaq took a significant decline this season, and his age was catching up to him, which was becoming apparent as Wembanyama was beating him off the dribble time after time to lead his team in scoring. And with that said, Cleveland was sweeping Miami to earn a trip to their first ever NBA Finals in franchise history. This meant everything for LeBron to have a chance to bring a ring to Ohio, and for Wemby, it was just as big, having a chance to get that Finals MVP to tie this up. And the only thing in their way was Kevin Garnett and the Wolves. Garnett was an incredible player and possibly the league's top 2-way guy, which we saw proof of when he won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. But even still, it was shocking that he found himself in the finals, because his Timberwolves team was lacking any respectable supporting cast around him. While it was impressive to drag him this far, it would come without surprise that Cleveland was walking all over them in this series. Wembanyama and LeBron together was practically unfair at this point, and there was no way KG by himself would be the one to defeat them. This thing was over before we knew it, as the Cavs gave Minnesota probably the worst beating in NBA Finals history. Cleveland was getting its first ever NBA championship, and our stars were now making progress toward Bill Russell's record-holding 11 rings. But the real question at hand was going to be who would earn the first Finals MVP of this competition. LeBron was the leading scorer throughout the finals, continuing where he ended the regular season as the team's #1 offensive option. He was incredibly efficient throughout this series, and as you'd expect, he continued setting up his teammates. Overall, James was the life and soul of the Cavaliers offense, but that's only half the game. The life and soul on the defensive end was Wembanyama, who had the role of guarding Minnesota's #1 guy. And additionally, Wemby was still a major key to the flow of their offense as well. In all honesty, this could go either way, but it has to be one. And it was LeBron James taking the first one home for having overall better stats, and now he further extends his lead over Wemby, and it wasn't stopped. The following season, they'd be the top seed again and rampaging through the Eastern Conference in the playoffs. Neither player would get the MVP, but they were still favorites to win it all as they entered the finals after defeating the Pistons in the conference finals, eventually leading to a matchup with San Antonio for a chance to repeat, and they'd be doing just that, backed by LeBron James again leading his team to the promised land. The Finals MVP this year was very clear, with LeBron leading the scoring heavily as Wemby had his hands tied with Duncan. His stats were through the roof, and he was legitimately starting to run away with this thing as the clear #1 guy in this duo. The season wasn't a complete waste for Wemby though, as he'd be finally earning a Defensive Player of the Year award, but that still left him with a lot to prove in comparison to his running mate. Either way, Cleveland was winning their second ring, and their stacked duo was starting to see some haters around the league.
You like it? You think Cleveland's cool? I mean, I never heard anybody say I'm going to Cleveland on vacation. What's so good about Cleveland?
But there was one team in particular planning to stop our duo. The Celtics had one of the league's top scorers in Paul Pierce, leading the way for Boston's offense, and paired with the quickly improving young Rondo, finding open looks was very easy. Rajon was also becoming one of the league's best defensive guards, oftentimes shutting down opposing PGs. But those two alone wouldn't be a threat to the NBA's best duo ever. Except that's not all. They also added Ray Allen to the mix, one of the best shooting guards in the NBA, and certainly the best shooter by a wide margin. And finally, the biggest acquisition was bringing in Kevin Garnett, who was still hunting for revenge for the 2006 NBA Finals. But before we see if that happens, we got to talk about the Cavs season first, because Wembanyama was having his best season of his career so far on both ends of the floor, but especially on the offensive side of things. His averages were career highs across the board, and it would be no surprise that he was winning his first MVP award this season. Other teams had no answer for this bizarre anomaly of a basketball player, and much of his newfound dominance was due to his improved shooting. He's been efficient from everywhere on the court since day one, but this year it's shown more than ever. He was the NBA's most efficient shooter from deep this year on over 6 attempts a night. And that isn't where the story of this year ends, because Victor was winning even more hardware this year. He was awarded his second straight Defensive Player of the Year as he anchored the paint for Cleveland. And while Wemby's big year would be all the talk with him closing the gap, that doesn't mean LeBron wasn't great too. He was also having another stellar year, much like he has every season up to this point, and he would be a major reason as to why the team was good enough to make the conference finals. But for the first time in a while, they weren't having home court advantage in a playoff series. Boston was head over heels the best overall team in the association this year, and they were showing why in these conference finals. They had a plethora of options on offense, and Cleveland lacked enough defenders to shut all of them down. Bron and Wemby were easily the best players on the court in this series, but the difference in total team structure was glaring as the Celtics took a commanding 2-0 lead to kick this thing off. Game 3 would take things back to familiar territory for Cleveland, and LeBron couldn't have been more grateful to play in front of his hometown fans. The added confidence from his own fans may have been exactly what he needed, because he was coming out of the gate swinging in an effort to set a playoff career high in scoring. He would drain in 51 points in a massively important game that could determine the tides of this series, but it might not have been enough, because once again the Celtics' vastly deep roster of skilled players were completely overwhelming the Cavaliers' roster. Even after the heroics of LeBron, Boston was still in charge and threatened a sweep. But the last thing LeBron was going to let happen was a sweep. In Game 4, he had another huge performance, and this time it was enough to carry his team to a win. The momentum would carry on into Boston, where Wembanyama now had a massive game, and the Cavs were starting to fight back into this one as they forced a Game 6, which may be this duo's biggest game in their careers, backed by media hype, hopeful that they can be the first team ever to recover from a 3-0 deficit in the playoffs. And as the battle between the East's two top teams waged on, this thing was looking like a total stalemate. Both sides were matching the other every trip down, bucket for bucket, all the way to the final minute. We'd have a Cavalier timeout late in the game, down by 3 points, as their season's fate is up in the air. Out of their huddle, they didn't bound the ball down low to LeBron, who would make a quick move in the post. And with him sinking the shot, they were within 1, and with Boston now in possession, anything could happen. Boston is up by 1 with just under 40 seconds remaining in this game. Paul Pierce with the ball. Victor Wembanyama guarding him. That's interesting. A smart defense. They get a pick and roll to Posey. That was a misread by James and Wembanyama. After a massive defensive miscue by the Cavs, they found themselves down 3 again. Coming out of the timeout, Cleveland looked prepared, but could they get it done in this moment? I'd argue that this is the biggest moment of Wemby and LeBron's career so far. Down by 3 in the conference finals. Wembanyama to pick and roll. LeBron in the post. They have Wemby back door. They do find him eventually. The lay. Oh my God! It's off. It's off. Down by 3. You're sending Kendrick Perkins to the line though. He could miss. Perkins' first free throw. It's good. Oh my God. The second free throw from KP, Kendrick Perkins. You need a miss here in this moment. Huge moment for Wembanyama. LeBron's legacy. He misses this one. Very shot the rebound. Wemby's not in the court anymore. He may have fouled out. LeBron with it though. 14 seconds. You don't have time to waste here. You have to go quick. Anderson Varejao to the corner to Hughes. You gotta be kidding me, man. Get the ball to LeBron. And just like that, the Cavs championship run was coming to a screeching halt. And this wasn't the last of Boston. For the next 2 seasons straight, Boston was the Cavaliers' kryptonite. Both years, they'd be bouncing LeBron and Wemby from the playoffs, and it seemed like there was nothing our duo could do about it. With a major decision looming, they had a plan to counter Boston's super team, but first, we have to talk about the 2009 and 10 seasons. Wemby's Defensive Player of the Year run would be coming to an end, as Dwight won the next 2 years. Also in 2009, the MVP would be on the move to Los Angeles, as it was going to Kobe Bryant, who killed Wemby's hopes of a back-to-back MVP. Despite this, Victor was still playing at an MVP caliber level, but his production dropped slightly for one major reason. LeBron was continuing to flourish here early in his career as he was expanding his game every single year. Come 2010, he was making more strides than his competition as he shined brighter than the rest of the league, and he was adding another MVP to his resume and separating his legacy from Wemby. LeBron earns his second MVP. Even though they haven't been to the finals in 3 years, this is at least something for them to accomplish, and I have a hunch that they're about to be going to a lot of NBA finals because big changes are happening. LeBron James and Victor Wembanyama were making the decision to take their talents to Miami. As we foreshadowed earlier, they were joining the superstar Dwayne Wade, and that's not all, because they were also joined with one of the East's best bigs in Bosh. Overnight, Miami instantly became the new hottest team in the East. Boston's super team would likely be completely eclipsed by this new talented roster, and it wasn't just the Celtics who should worry. No team in the entire league really stood any chance against a group with 4 of basketball's top 20 players in the starting lineup. They had athleticism with both LeBron and D-Wade on the breaks. They had size with 2 huge bigs in the front court with Bosh and Wemby. They had everything you could possibly want in a roster. Of course, when you have 4 all-stars sharing the rock, you weren't going to see any personal trophies going out, but what you did get was the best record we've ever seen in pro basketball. Come playoffs, they wouldn't even get a chance for revenge on Boston because Chicago and the MVP Derrick Rose beat them in round 2, meaning Miami was facing the Bulls in the conference finals, and in real life this year, the Heat won this matchup 4-1. So as you can imagine, now that they added Wembanyama, this series was a cakewalk like the first 2 rounds. In the finals, somehow the Portland Trailblazers managed to make it here. Their best player was LaMarcus Aldridge, and he'd struggle versus Miami's size. While it was clear that Miami would win this series, it wasn't clear who would win the finals MVP. New teammate Dwayne Wade was playing great and could possibly be winning the award. He actually would lead all scorers in this series with an outstanding 29.5 points a night. But Wembanyama wasn't too far behind Wade's scoring. His production elsewhere would easily make up for the difference. Surprisingly, the least impactful player of the Big Three in this year's finals would be LeBron James. Don't get it twisted though, his stats were still great, and it just goes to show how dominant this Heat team was. But in the end, Victor was getting the award over Dwayne Wade, which means he lessens the gap depending on how you weight MVP versus Defensive Player of the Year. Easy 4-0 sweep for the Heat. I don't know how the Blazers even got here, but really it didn't matter who made it to the finals. This Heat team, I'm gonna spoil it, are not gonna lose. There's no way they lose with a team this stacked. It's gonna come down to who wins the finals MVPs. I couldn't have been more right, as in 2012 they dominated the Mavericks in the finals, in 2013 they were crushing the Thunder, and finally in 2014 they finished the four-peat by defeating OKC for the 2nd straight year, which would close out their time in Miami as a massive success before changing teams again. And now they have jumped from just 2 all the way up to 6 rings, and they're halfway to their goal with 10 seasons remaining. As far as the trophies, in 2012 Victor had a perfect season, not only winning the finals MVP against the Mavericks, but throughout the regular season he was the league's top player as well, which was enough to earn the MVP to go along with yet another Defensive Player of the Year honor. It was a massive year for Wemby, and he'd win all 3 trophies to give him a huge boost. The matchups against the Thunder, on the other hand, would be all LeBron, who was back to taking over in the finals and won the finals MVP in both of these playoffs. And it was looking like James was becoming the clear #1 again, because in 2013 he was surprisingly getting the Defensive Player of the Year, and in 2014 the finals MVP wasn't all he was winning, because he was also getting his 3rd regular season MVP. While Wemby did end up getting another Defensive Player this season, LeBron was taking what appeared to be a big lead. But that could all be in jeopardy, because while the Heat era wrapped up, there was a player out west developing his game who was surely about to be a major threat to Victor and LeBron for the next few years, as we see the early remnants of the biggest hurdle yet. But they were facing that hurdle in some new but familiar threads. Our duo was returning to the same city where it all started, back in Cleveland. Here they were joined by a young Kyrie Irving, but still a budding star in this league. Their new Cavaliers team wasn't as talented as the Miami team they've been a part of the last 4 years, but they were still the best team in the East and were easily securing the top seed. Even though there was a change of scenery, it was still going to be the same duo completely dominating the Eastern Conference. Wemby and LeBron were both good enough to turn any team that they were on into contenders, and this was no different. The first round against Detroit was ending in a sweep to move on. In the following round, they faced the Celtics again, and while much of their super team's core had been traded, it still gave Bron and Wemby a chance for redemption. With the opportunity in their midst, they took advantage. They were finally getting their revenge over Boston as they win in 6. And with the conference finals being against Toronto, we all know about LeBron's history versus this team. As usual, he was stepping his game up to an all-time great level, and he was paving the way for his group to sweep for a trip to the finals. Speaking of the finals, LeBron's high level of play was continuing in a matchup against Durant and the Thunder for the 3rd season in a row. OKC was unable to defeat our duo in their last years in Miami, and you'd be crazy if you thought they were going to defeat them now in Cleveland. After another legacy-defining performance, LeBron was winning another ring as the finals MVP. But LeBron wasn't the only one getting love in Cleveland, because in the finals again in 2016, the Cavs were up against the Warriors, and this series would be all Wemby. Iguodala had LeBron somewhat contained, but there wasn't a single guy on Golden State's roster that was going to have any impact on Wembanyama. With the small ball type of play style they ran, Wemby was able to just shoot over whatever defense they threw at him, and it would be no surprise that he was earning the finals MVP this time around. This new team was looking even more unstoppable as the duo was winning their 8th ring, but everything was about to change.
Well, I'm viewing it as the weakest move I've ever seen from a superstar. Plain and simple. That's just how I look at it.
After Durant fell to LeBron and Victor 3 straight years, he decided to join forces with Steph Curry, who has also failed to overcome this duo. This would create one of the best teams ever, and at this point, we might as well fast forward to the finals. Once there, Cleveland will have home court advantage, but this wouldn't be like the past years. Sure, Wemby was still able to run free without anyone in Golden State matching up with him, but now the Warriors had an insane amount of firepower where their goal was simply to outscore Cleveland. And by all means, it looked like this strategy was working because Golden State was firing on all cylinders and they were giving Wemby and LeBron the biggest challenge they've had since the Celtics super team. Our stars were giving it their all on both ends of the floor, but for the first time in a long time, their backs were against the wall. Forced into a Game 7, there was a lot at stake. They still needed 4 more rings and only had a few years left to do so. They were locked in this game and were playing the best basketball we've seen from them for 48 minutes straight. The only issue was the Warriors were doing the exact same, and this thing was close coming to the final moments. The Warriors just took a late 1-point lead versus the Cavaliers thanks to a Kevin Durant bucket. LeBron has it now in Game 7. You have to score here. You don't have a lot of years left. You need this championship. Victor Wembanyama setting the screen. The duo right here. LeBron all the way. Clear path to the rim. It's good plus the foul. LeBron gets the free throw. Kevin Durant fouled out on that foul on LeBron James. So now the Warriors are down by 2 with 35 seconds left. What a shot from King James. They need to stop here. Wembanyama in the pick and roll with Steph Curry. Kyrie's sticking him. He gets around the JaVale McGee screen. Curry serving it. He gets down low to JaVale. Curry trying to get open. JaVale versus the multiple defensive player of the year. Wembanyama the rebounds. And they foul him on Shumpert. Shumpert ended up splitting the free throws. The Warriors are still in this. Down by 3. Anything is possible with shooters like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. They got to get inbounded though. They get it to Draymond. Curry's down low in the paint for some reason. They're swinging around Iguodala. Steph Curry now. 13 seconds remaining. This is huge for this team. Steph Curry, the screen from JaVale. He's got the 3. He's not taking. He's going all the way. Wemby! He sends that shit into the 3rd row. Wembanyama with the block. That could go down as the biggest block in NBA Finals history here in this reality. The Warriors still have time though, but the Cavaliers are 1 stop away from becoming NBA championship. Klay Thompson, it's off. I was so flustered. I said the wrong name. The Cavaliers are doing it. The Cavs are doing it. Cleveland was celebrating their massive win, which makes 7 straight rings for our duo, but who will be the Finals MVP? The Cavaliers are champions, but we still have to decide who is the Finals MVP. And it's looking like it's going to be Victor Wembanyama. He's too tall to even fit on the screen. 2K, you got to fix this. He deserves it after that huge block on Steph Curry that sealed the deal for the Cavaliers to get 7th straight championship for this duo. But with Kyrie being moved to Boston the next year, this could be the end of the Cavs. Because while they'd make it to the finals again, this time around they weren't even close to competing against the Warriors, who were winning game after game after game. And that wouldn't be the last of the losing to the Warriors either, because the next season they'd both head out to LA with the Lakers and continue to play just as good as they have, but again ended up meeting Golden State in the playoffs where they would face defeat to the hands of the Warriors. Things were looking grim, but with KD leaving and LA getting reinforcements, it was all gonna be fine. The Lakers were acquiring Anthony Davis to put him down low with Wembanyama. Instantly, they now had possibly the greatest front court in NBA history, and no other team could match their size. Wemby and Brown would be back to the top of the league once again, but there wouldn't be any regular season awards. Age was starting to catch up to our stars, and Wemby in particular, whose stats were dropping noticeably. Regardless though, this Lakers team was still plenty good to blaze through the playoffs and win the Western Conference Finals against the Pelicans. Somehow Joel Embiid was waiting in the finals, and with Wemby and AD both in the paint, he was getting completely shut down. And while Wemby led the charge in defense, it was all LeBron leading the charge offensively as he was taking over this matchup to lead his team. With our competition coming close to an end, this would be massive for LeBron as he was winning his 6th Finals MVP to give him a strong lead over Wembanyama. No surprise that the Lakers are winning here. Sixers have no business even getting to the conference finals, much less the NBA Finals. And now we are 2 championships away from that goal of 12. They've hit 10 together, but with only a handful of seasons left, it's gonna be a tight race trying to get it done. Following giving up another Finals MVP to Braun, Wemby was having another pretty standard year, and he was getting another Defensive Player of the Year, which is his first in a while. Other than that, nothing else noteworthy happened this season, and they'd be making it to the finals yet again versus Milwaukee. This would be about the same as the Sixers series, with Giannis being the Bucks star and relying on looks in the paint. But with the best defensive front court in league history, his abilities were incredibly limited, and they'd be losing. Wemby was getting old, but still had enough gas in the tank for one more spectacular finals, and he was getting another Finals MVP to close in in on LeBron. And with the trophy competition still very close, these next years will be even more critical. Another championship makes it 11 rings together. They only need one more, and they still have 3 seasons to get it done. They have a good shot of actually passing up Bill Russell. Specifically, the 2022 finals will be the most important against KD, because to set what's at stake, the Lakers lose in both 2023 and 2024 in the playoffs, meaning they have to win this series if they want to hit 12 and pass Bill Russell. But Durant was still eager to beat our stars any chance he could, and his determination showed, because on the road, he came into the series and dominated the Lakers, taking both games in Los Angeles, which meant Wemby and Bron are down 2-0 in the biggest series of their lives. But with the lights the brightest, there was one player that seemed like time had no effect on him. LeBron James, for what feels like the 100th time, was turning things up a notch against Kevin Durant. He was leading his team to wins in the next 3 games and even put them in position late in Game 6 to close this series out. With a little over a minute left, the Lakers are up by 1. No surprise, Russell Westbrook is ice cold. LeBron James, Victor Wembanyama going for ring number 12. If they can hold off the Nets here for about another 70 seconds. Wembanyama sending the screen for Carmelo Anthony, getting significant minutes. Wembanyama too fast for Drummond, gets that back door. 3-point lead for LA. Kevin Durant has the ball now though for the Brooklyn Nets, and he's looking to score here. You can go for the quick 2, or you can tie with a 3. Kevin Durant wide open on the right side, did not go for the 3. He's driving down LeBron. The pull-up J, he gets that one in to make it a 1-point game again. The Lakers now with another opportunity. 48 seconds remaining in this game. Carmelo Anthony running this offense again with Wembanyama. I'm surprised it's not LeBron. Carmelo driving, he throws to Wembanyama, another wide open leg. That is a defensive lapse. I would have took a timeout too if I'm Brooklyn. 2 possessions in a row. You let Victor Wembanyama at like 38 years old get that wide of open of a look. That is insane. Kevin Durant with the ball now though. There's still plenty of time if you're the Nets. Durant driving it in on LeBron. Crowded paint, forces a lay over the trees down there. He gets that one in, makes it a 1-point game. Brooklyn not going for the free throws, which is interesting. If Russell Westbrook touches that ball, I would foul him for sure. Carmelo with it again. Is it going to be Melo and Victor Wembanyama once more? 20 seconds left in the game. You score here, that might be the dagger to defeat the Brooklyn Nets. Carmelo Anthony, 6 seconds left in the shot clock. The Victor Wembanyama pick and roll. The patented one at this point. Melo draws the foul going to the line. Free throw 1 for Carmelo. I just realized this would be huge for Melo too in this reality. He would actually be able to get himself an NBA championship. Carmelo Anthony, free throw 1, it's good. And with the season on the line, free throw number 2 is good as well. 3-point lead. Brooklyn used their last timeout. The last time we had a close game in the finals, Victor Wembanyama swatted Steph Curry to kill the Warriors' hopes of a championship. Kevin Durant was on that team. With no Steph Curry now, I think Kevin Durant is going to be the one taking the ball, trying to tie this thing back up, force an overtime, keep their season on the line here. We have Nick Claxton on the inbound. Kevin Durant trying to get open. Kyrie Irving is another great option. Durant has it on the left wing for 3. Bang! KD for 3. Just as I predicted, Kevin Durant was trying to get revenge. He was trying to make up for that lost finals in 2017, I think it was. But the Lakers still have 5.6 left on the clock. Let's see what they drew up in the huddle. They took a timeout. Victor Wembanyama off the inbound. LeBron James, Victor Wembanyama. Who is it? Or is it going to be Carmelo? It's looking like it might be Melo driving in. Melo forcing his pull-up. It's up Wemby. The putback. It's good. Before the buzzer. Before the Lakers do it. Victor Wembanyama saves the day. The Lakers are champions. The Lakers win. The Lakers have officially done it. They reached their goal of winning 12 rings, which makes them the most winning duo of all time. But who will be the finals MVP? Wembanyama is getting our last trophy, which means this is our finalized standings. And in my opinion, LeBron won overall with the extra MVPs. But could LeBron win a challenge where he swaps his career with Michael Jordan? Find out by clicking this video next.